I need to tell you about something that happened to me. Something I haven't shared with many people because honestly, I'm terrified that talking about it will somehow make it real again. My therapist says I have PTSD. She's probably right. But knowing what to call it doesn't make the nightmare stop. This is my story. This is what happened when I trespassed into a place I should never have entered. I used to love exploring, not just hiking or camping. I mean really exploring forgotten places, abandoned buildings, the kind of locations where time stops and nature slowly reclaims what humans left behind. My friends and we'd been doing this for about 3 years. It started small old barns on the outskirts of town, seasonal buildings that were closed for winter, that kind of thing. We were careful, respectful even. We never vandalized anything, never stole. We just wanted to see these places, to document them before they disappeared completely. The rush was incredible, walking through a building that hadn't seen human presence in decades, seeing calendars still hanging on walls from years past, finding personal belongings left behind like frozen moments in time. It was like being archaeologists, uncovering layers of forgotten history. Found this textile mill that became our regular spot. It was massive, 3 stories, right on the river. The city had started renovation on one wing, but the money ran out. The rest of it, probably 80% of the building, was completely untouched. We spent months there, every weekend finding new rooms, new stories hidden in the decay. We'd run into homeless people sometimes, taking shelter from the cold. We'd leave them alone. Sometimes even left water bottles and food. There was a code, you know. We weren't trying to kick anyone out or cause trouble. We were just visitors. But eventually, we'd seen everything the mill had to offer. We needed something new. My friend Sophie found it on a satellite map. An automotive salvage yard north of the city, huge complex, probably 200 yards across, with a central courtyard full of stripped cars. The county records listed it as inactive since 2003. Perfect. We went on a Saturday afternoon in September. 4 of us, me, Marcus, Derek, and Sophie. The place was even bigger than it looked from above. The main building was this sprawling maze of corrugated metal and brick, added onto over decades until it became this industrial monster. The courtyard was full of dead vehicles. Cars with hoods open like screaming mouths, pickup trucks stripped to their frames, a delivery van with weeds growing up through the dashboard, everything covered in that orange dust that comes from rust and time. But I noticed something weird right away. "Look at this," I said to Marcus, running my hand along a sedan's hood. Some of the cars had no dust at all. They looked almost maintained. And in the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of tires, was a dark blue pickup truck that looked like someone had parked it there yesterday. "Maybe they still use part of this place," Derek said, but even he sounded uncertain. "We should have left. God, we should have just turned around and walked away, but we didn't. We were too curious." The interior was a maze. Old workstations, hydraulic lifts frozen mid-extension, offices overlooking the production floor. We moved through it with our flashlights, checking everything out, taking photos. That's when we found it. In the southwest corner, accessible through this narrow corridor, we discovered a section that was completely different from the rest of the building. While everything else was industrial concrete, exposed pipes, rust everywhere, this part had actual walls, real drywall, painted yellow. The floor had old linoleum that had turned the color of old teeth, and every surface was covered in wood paneling, like someone's basement from the 1970s. It was domestic, intentional, wrong. There was a short hallway connecting 3 doors, and sitting in that hallway, arranged neatly against the wall, just like you'd see in someone's home, was a pair of work boots. They weren't old and falling apart like everything else. They were worn, but recently used. The first door was plain, no markings. The second door had a peephole, like on an apartment. The third had frosted glass. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. We tried the doors. The plain one opened, just a storage room full of old office chairs stacked to the ceiling. The other two were locked tight. I took some photos, but I had this creeping feeling in my gut. This wasn't abandoned. Someone was living here. Someone had carved out a space in this dead building and made it theirs. We left that day, but the damage was done. We'd been there. Our footprints were in the dust, our fingerprints on the doors. We'd announced ourselves. 5 weeks later, we went back. Just 3 of us this time. Sophie had moved away for work. It was me, Marcus, and Derek. I'm not sure why we went back. Curiosity, maybe, or addiction. We needed to know who had created that space, why they were there, what it all meant. It was late afternoon when we arrived, overcast sky threatening rain. The complex lived the same cars rusting, building looming. But the blue truck was gone from the courtyard. That felt like a good sign. If whoever used this place was gone, we could explore safely. We spent over an hour inside, documenting new areas. The light was dying when we finally made our way back to that wood-paneled section. The boots had moved. They were pointing outward now instead of toward the wall. "Let's try the doors again," Derek said quietly. The plain door still opened, still full of chairs. The peephole door stayed locked, but when Marcus tried the frosted glass door, it swung open smoothly. The smell hit us immediately. Heavy cologne mixed with coffee and tobacco, the smell of recent human presence. The room was small, maybe 10 by 12 feet. A desk covered in papers, a filing cabinet, a folding chair, and on the desk, a coffee mug with stains still visible on the rim. We were talking, trying to figure out what we were looking at, when we heard it. A bang. Loud, metallic, coming from behind the wall from the room with the peephole. We froze. Complete silence. Then the peephole door opened. I need you to understand what real fear feels like. Not movie fear or roller coaster fear. I'm talking about the fear that floods your system when you realize you might die in the next 30 seconds, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Marcus was closest to the door. He made this sound like all the air leaving his lungs, and then I heard a heavy thud, a metallic clatter, and then nothing. Just silence. Derek grabbed my arm and yanked me backward. We pressed ourselves against the wall just left of the door frame, trying to disappear. My mind was racing. Where was Marcus? Why were there no sounds? Had he fallen? Had something happened to him? I could hear footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Moving through the room next door, then stopping. Then they moved toward our door. An old man appeared in the doorway, and I felt my heart stop. He was in his 70s, with long white hair and a face like weathered leather, flannel shirt, work pants, and in his right hand, held casually at his side, was a revolver. He leaned into the doorway and looked directly at me. Our eyes met. I've never seen eyes like that. Gray. Completely empty. Like looking into the eyes of a shark. There was no anger there, no fear, no humanity, just cold calculation. I shook my head. I didn't decide to do it, just happened. A desperate, wordless plea. I was begging for my life with nothing but that simple motion. He stared at me for what felt like forever, but was probably only seconds. Then, without a word, he closed the door and stepped back into his room. The instant that door closed, Derek spotted something. I hadn't a second door at the back of the room, behind the filing cabinet. We moved, no talking, no breathing, just moving as quietly and quickly as we could. The door opened into the main production floor. It was wide open, no walls, no cover, just concrete and scattered machinery. A walkway ran down the center, and we'd have to cross it completely exposed. We had no choice. We ran. Our footsteps echoed like gunshots. The old building's floor was treacherous boards giving way, metal shifting, debris everywhere. That's when I saw him again. He came out of the corridor, and this time he was carrying a shotgun. He moved methodically, purposefully. He was hunting, but he turned away from us, going in the opposite direction. Maybe the acoustics confused him, made our footsteps sound like they came from somewhere else. We didn't stop to think about it. We found a loading dock door, forced it open, and burst out into the fading daylight. The parking lot was across an overgrown field, maybe 200 yards away. We ran through the tall grass, lungs burning, legs screaming. When we reached Derek's Jeep, I realized something that made my blood run cold. "Where's Marcus?" I gasped. "I don't know." Derek sat his face pale. I thought. A figure burst from the tree line, Marcus, running full speed, his face bloody, limping badly. "Go, go," he shouted. Derek started the engine as Marcus closed the distance. I threw open the back door, reaching for him. That's when I heard the shot. A sharp crack that tore the air apart. Something whizzed past us with a sound like angry wasps. The Jeep shuddered as the bullet hit metal somewhere behind me. Marcus dove into the back seat, and Derek was already moving, tires squealing as we fishtailed onto the access road. We didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. Derek just drove, checking the mirror constantly. Marcus was in the back, holding cloth to a gash above his eyebrow. Finally, I had to ask, "What happened?" Marcus's voice was hollow. When that door opened, I ran for the stairs, but the first step wasn't there. The whole staircase was rotted through. I fell, hit my head. When I came to, I could hear him above me, walking around, searching. "How did you escape?" Derek asked. "I didn't move." I laid there in the dark listening to him walk around, and I didn't move. Eventually, he must have thought I'd run a different way because I heard him leave. I waited until I couldn't hear anything, then found a window well and climbed out. We took Marcus to an ER 3 towns over. 14 stitches. We told them he'd fallen hiking. We never reported it. We were trespassing. We'd ignored warning signs. And the way that old man had looked at me, that complete absence of humanity, made me certain that involving police would make things worse. We tried to tell ourselves it was over. We were so wrong. 3 weeks later, Marcus called me at 2 in the morning. "He's outside my house," Marcus whispered, standing under the streetlight, just watching. I told him he was seeing things, experiencing trauma. Then Derek saw him too, in his apartment parking lot at night. Then I saw him. I was leaving work, walking to my car, when I felt eyes on me. I turned, and there he was, standing beside a dark blue pickup truck, the same truck from the salvage yard. He didn't move, didn't threaten, just watched as I got in my car and drove away, my hands shaking so badly I almost crashed. Things kept happening. My apartment was broken into, but nothing was stolen. Just things moved. A photo turned face down, a book placed upside down. Small violations that said, "I was here, I can reach you." Derek's car, every tire slashed. Security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. Marcus found a bullet on his doorstep. We were being hunted, slowly, methodically, by someone who wanted us to know we'd never be safe. 6 months later, I received a package. No return address, just my name in careful block letters. Inside was a folder of photographs, pictures of us, Derek at the grocery store, Marcus at a restaurant, me at work, and dozens from that day at the salvage yard, photos of us exploring, laughing, completely unaware we were being watched. But the last photo froze my blood. It was taken from inside that room with the frosted glass, looking out at us standing in the doorway. In the foreground, blurred but unmistakable, was the barrel of a gun. He'd been there the whole time, watching us through that peephole, his weapon ready. We'd never been explorers. We'd been prey that he'd chosen, for reasons I'll never understand, to let live. There was a note attached in that same careful block lettering. You came back. Don't make me come for you. I haven't done urban exploration since that day. I can't even think about entering an abandoned building without my chest tightening, my vision narrowing, my heart racing until I think it might burst. Marcus moved to Oregon without telling anyone. Derek started drinking heavily, lost his job. Last I heard, he's living with his parents, barely leaving his room. Me? I still go through the motions, but I check my locks 5 times every night. I scan parking lots before approaching my car. I wake up certain I've heard footsteps outside my door, and sometimes when I'm driving at night, I see a dark blue pickup truck in my rearview mirror. It never gets close, just follows at a distance, reminding me that I'm being watched, that I'll always be watched. Because here's what keeps me awake at night. We never really left that building, part of me still there, frozen in that moment when the door opened, when I looked into those gray shark eyes and my life was weighed and measured, and, for reasons I'll never comprehend, I was found worthy of the temporary reprieve, but temporary isn't forever. And in the darkest hours, when sleep finally comes, I dream of that wood-paneled hallway, those 3 doors, and the sound of boots on concrete getting closer. Sometimes in my dreams, the door opens again, but this time, when I shake my head and plead for my life, those gray eyes don't blink. They just stare. And the dream doesn't end. I wake up gasping, checking locks, looking out at empty streets. But the fear never leaves. It's in my DNA now, written into my cells, because the worst part isn't that I looked death in the face and survived. It's that I know. The old man is still out there. Still watching. Still waiting, and someday, when he decides the time is right, that door will open one final time. There won't be a second exit. There won't be anyone to run alongside. There will just be me and him, and the settling of accounts that was postponed but never forgiven, building maybe miles away. But I'm still in his domain. I'll always be in his domain, and he'll never let me forget it. Last week, I found something new on my doorstep. Not a bullet this time. It was a single photograph. Me, sleeping in my bed, taken from inside my bedroom. He has a key now, and I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow